Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is Akaza, my upper rank 3 daddy. Sorry, I'm kidding. And he is paired with myself. No, I'm joking. He's with a female listener, and this one is titled Summoned. Enjoy. Is this really a good idea? Your friend asked you as you carried the Ouija board under your left arm and a lantern in your right hand, walking steadfastly on down the well-worn yet desolate track into the woods. You looked at her in the dark, the light from the lantern illuminating half of your faces as you headed towards the abandoned quarry. Sure it is, you said with a grin. It'll be fun. I don't know. I just feel like summoning a demon when we already have enough demons around here is maybe not such a good idea, she said with a heavy emphasis on the word demons in her voice. It's true, what she had said. Your small town had been plagued by demons at the moment, coming and stealing people away or turning people into one of their own. It was frightening. But you had heard that maybe if you summoned a demon by your own calling, you could get it to help you, keep it as a pet that would fight off the other demons for you. You know, it was a theory, but you thought maybe you had an idea that would work? On you both walked, the rocks and stones underfoot crunching softly with each step. It was a relatively comforting sound, at least you could both hear each other and know that you were both still there and alive. Up ahead you could see the abandoned quarry building, and you headed straight for it with her by your side. Do you even have a plan? Do you know how to do this? She asked you. Yeah, I have a plan. I always have a plan, you replied with a smirk, as you stepped into the building and walked over to the table there and placed the board down. Can it be a quick plan? She asked hesitantly, looking back over her shoulder and out in the darkened doorway into the pitch-black night outside. I'll just make a quick call, and then we can go, you said, trying to make a small joke about it, but you were starting to get a little nervous yourself now too, the tips of your fingers quivering slightly. Setting the board out, you took a small pocket knife from your pocket and flicked the blade out from the sheath, then placed the blade with the sharp side down against the palm of your hand. Your friend watched curiously with a slight frown of confusion on her face. What are you... But she didn't get to ask the rest of her question because you scrunched your nose up then and closed your fingers over the knife and pulled it quickly back out from your hand. Your friend gasped as soon as you had done that and covered her eyes as dark liquid oozed from your palm, its true colour being shown in small flashes as the lantern light caught it occasionally, small droplets dripping from your palm and onto the table and board in front of you. You quickly muttered a chant that you had heard some of the other kids saying when you had spied on them using the board once, and grabbed for the glass cup that was sitting in the middle of the board, your bloodied hand resting gingerly on top, tainting the clear glass with your life force. You finished your chant and then you waited for a second. Can I ask a question? You asked the board, and the cup started to move on its own, dragging your hand with it. It slid from the Y to the E, then to the S, and you looked at your friend who still had her hands over her mouth, her eyes as large as saucers. I want to call for my brother, you then said firmly, looking back down at the board. I want him to come back to me and be my guard. No, your friend whispered in fear. No, don't call him. Just then the board shook violently as a sudden wind whipped up from nowhere, upending the whole table and throwing the lantern, board, and glass cup across the room and smashing them into the wall. At the same time that the items hit the wall, everything went pitch black, the lantern blown to pieces. What were you thinking? Your friend whispered in a shaky voice. That was your plan? I have no choice. We could all die. We need to get some demons on side. You replied back to her in a harsh whisper, your whole body shaking with adrenaline. Who needs to be on side? A sudden voice asked in the darkness, and you and your friend jumped with fear, heads swivelling around to see who had spoken. Who's there? You called in a terrified voice. Brother, is it you? The voice chuckled. I don't think so, it said. Your friend grabbed for your arm and squeezed it as she got closer to you, mashing her body into your side. Who are you? She then asked into the darkness. Weren't you calling for a demon? The voice asked. Yes, but... you started to say. Well, you got one. The voice replied, and then all of a sudden the moon came out from behind a cloud and illuminated the being who was speaking to you. You paled when you saw him. He was most definitely not human, not with all his bluish markings and his yellow eyes with kanji etched into them. A demon, you whispered with fear. Oh, don't worry, I'm not here to eat you, he said as he stepped into the building and walked over to you and your friend. I am curious though. You're out here all alone, unarmed. You'd make a good meal for any demon. Why have you acted so brashly? I wanted to call my brother back. He became a demon and ate my sister and my mother. But maybe he would come back and protect me. You started to choke up then. Maybe calling him wasn't such a good idea after all. What if he came back from the dead and ate you too? But you're so scared of living in this world without any protection. Life was so uncertain. You're brave, I'll give you that. Most humans are weak and spineless. But you have courage, the demon said as he looked down at you. You looked up at him. What's your name? You then asked him. Akaza, he replied. Akaza, would you be... You started to say, but all of a sudden Akaza grabbed you and your friend and threw you both behind him as he spun to put his back to you. Not ready for a sudden throw, you were sent sprawling and rolled a few times before coming to a stop, heavily smacking into the wall of the building. Oh, are you entertaining my new followers? A new voice said, and you tried to right yourself to see what was going on. It was still dark in the building, but you could now make out another being that had suddenly arrived on scene, facing off against Akaza. He was tall and beautiful with platinum blonde hair and almost glowed in the moonlight. I'll kill you right now, Akaza said darkly to this newcomer who seemed to be in relatively good spirits. Oh, but you wouldn't, would you? I thought you'd be happy to see me, he said with a cheery, almost coy smile that was immediately obliterated when Akaza punched him square in the jaw and disintegrated it. Another demon! You screamed internally, dread flooding your entire being. You looked over at your friend then, wanting to at least hold her hand to let her know that you were still there with her, but when you reached for her you saw that she wasn't awake or conscious. Hey, you okay? You gasped, getting on your hands and knees and crawling over beside her and rolling her onto her back so you could see her face. She just passed out, Akaza said from in front of you, not taking his eyes off this new demon who had showed up. Too much for her to handle. I know my beauty's stunning, the newcomer said with a dazzling yet malicious grin. Let me take care of her. Like hell, Akaza said lowly, stepping to the side to block the view of her from him. Get out of here, Doma. Come now, why won't you let me have some fun? Doma said with a big smile. We can be friends, you know. I really like you. Akaza immediately replied to this somewhat friendly-sounding gesture by jumping at him and punching him right through the face once more, sending Doma out through the wall. You covered your face with your hands as the two fought, debris and all sorts of things flying around as they took each other on with no regards to anything in their surroundings. What was going to become of you? Instead of calling on your brother, you ended up summoning two other demons, neither of whom you trusted very much, but this Akaza demon appeared to not want to harm you. But was this all part of his plan to lull you into a false sense of security? And then was he going to turn around and eat you, bite into the side of your neck and drain your life, like you'd seen far too many times? Did you try and run? You pulled your hands away from your face, placing one hand down on your friend as you knelt beside her. You could feel that she was still breathing. I can't leave her here. If I run, she'll surely get eaten, you thought, as you stood up and grabbed a hold of just under her arms and dragged her to the side a bit, just in case the fighting demons fought back inside the building. Akaza and Doma were in a fully fledged flight and fight now, and there was no way that you were about to interject. Getting in between these two is far too risky, so you just had to wait and see what would happen. With stress and anxiety pulsing through your veins, you waited for them to finalise a victor, and thankfully, although Doma appeared to be the stronger one, he got bored of going toe-to-toe with Akaza and eventually vanished, saying that he would find a better meal elsewhere. Akaza turned around and walked back into the building to you. Oh no, you thought with despair, as he started walking over to you with purpose, his eye contact with you remaining strong. You said when he stopped in front of you. There's no way I can fight you, please. Just let my friend go. You can eat me. I don't want to eat you, he said as he crouched down in front of you and took your chin in hand, tilting your face up a little to look at you. You stared into his golden-etched eyes, feeling like you were looking through cracked glass. You don't? You asked him. No. I know you were calling for your brother, but I'll get you home. You won't be safe forever, but if you do become a demon, come looking for me, he said. Then he stood up. You carry your friend, he then ordered. You quickly bent down and with difficulty got her body up and over your shoulder. I'll walk behind, he said. If I tell you to stop, stop. You just nodded your head and then turned and started walking back out of the now very damaged building and back out into the night. For the first time in years you weren't afraid of walking in the night. It felt oddly powerful to know that you had a super strong demon behind you, ready to go anyone who stepped out to get you, yet at the same time the hair on the back of your neck was standing on end, knowing that there was a literal demon walking behind you. He could attack you at any moment, yet he didn't appear to want to. Back home you walked, making your way back to the house as quickly as possible. As you neared your gate, you slowed and turned around. Akaza was still behind you. "Can I ask why you haven't eaten me?" you asked him. "Call it distant memories," he replied. "I don't remember why, but I just don't want to." And with that he turned and walked away. You wanted to call out to him to ask if you could see him again, but that would be madness. Not wanting to stay outside in the dark without any protection, you quickly got to the front door and let yourself in, taking you and your friend to your room. The next morning she woke, having woken from her faint earlier in the morning and seen that she was safely back in your house with you fast asleep beside her in your bed, so she just closed her eyes and went back to sleep. "Hey," she said as she placed her hand on your shoulder and shook you awake. You replied in a tired voice, your eyelids sticking together as you tried to open them to look at her. "What happened?" she asked. What do you remember?" you rasped to her, yawning on the end of your question. "Demons," she said with a shudder. "Yeah, the nice one, Akaza. He helped me get home. He was kind of cute too, though," you said, thinking back. "You're crazy to say a demon's cute. I think you're still asleep," she replied. "My God, let's never do that again, though. That was madness." "Yeah, but you know what? If I ever do become a demon, don't kill me. I have someone waiting for me," you replied with a wistful smile. I mean, who doesn't want to be with a 133-year-old male? Like, prime of his life, right? I'm kidding. Stay tuned for another Demon Slayer one-shot coming next week. I'm glad you're enjoying these. I'm so enjoying doing all these characters. There's so many to get through, and hopefully I'll have a nice collection built up very soon. So I'll see you then. If I don't see you next week, I will hopefully see you tomorrow in the next chapter of Gains. See you then.